Alrighty guys, hopefully you can hear me okay. Go ahead and switch over to the main cam here right at 7 o'clock. I'm doing a sound check. If you guys can hear me okay, just let me know in the live chat. Let me know that you can hear me clearly. That way we don't have the same issue we had last show where I got about 6.5 minutes into the show and realized that nobody could hear me. And it was quite embarrassing because I had a really good spiel going there and I had to redo it all. I was giggling the whole time and I was embarrassed. So just want to make sure that everybody can hear me clearly. Give me the thumbs up if you can. That's important. And then we'll get the show on the road because we do have quite a bit to cover. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the all-new Bronco. I don't want to get too much into the Bronco specifics because it seems to be covered everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's arguing about it. Some people are for it. Some people are against it. We're going to key into some certain things about that Bronco and then discuss potentially putting a V8 in it. Now, the two options are the Coyote and the Godzilla, so we'll go over some of those points. We're going to go over some other things that we kind of been figuring out about the Godzilla and how it's going to apply to certain cars and maybe what's going to be the best fit for it as far as a swap. We'll go over some updated product tech that we have and some of the things we're planning on doing. And then we'll just do some general chat. Coyote Swap tech, anything that we offer, basically throw it out there. You can do super chats, which are nice. If you definitely need to have your question answered here live. If you don't get your question answered from the chat or the super chat for any reason, you can always email me directly. My email is frank@pbhperformance.com. I'm going to put that there on the bottom of the screen so everybody can see it. If you want to actually purchase one of these hats, we do have them in black and gray. We're sold out of them right now, but if you want to purchase one, we're going to have them back in a couple weeks. Once we have them, we'll be able to fill the orders. You want to email me directly, frank@pbhperformance.com. That way I can get you a PayPal link to pay for it, get your address, and get them shipped out as soon as they're available. To the guys who have ordered it from me, thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying them. I hope they look awesome on you, as awesome as they look on me, I guess. And I hope a lot of people are jealous that you have them, so enjoy them. If you're new to the show, and you don't know who PBH is, Power by the Hour Performance, we are Coyote Swap Specialists, potentially Godzilla Swap Specialists. We also key in on the 6R80 transmission, some tuning, a myriad of different parts for Coyote powertrains and so forth. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that now. Hit the subscription button, subscribe to it, hit the notification button, make sure you hit all so you don't miss any of the stuff that we put out there. We're always working on videos. We haven't been able to release any in a while now, but we're working on putting a few together here for some product updates and so forth, and even some project videos that we're working on as well. Got some local customers that have our components on their vehicles, and we're going to be supercharging a Mustang pretty soon as well. Coyote Swap Mustang, that is. So make sure you do that. It really helps our channel grow, lets other people know about what we do. Share the video, follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. We're always putting up different things up there, different polls and different questions. This week we asked about the Coyote engine, the Godzilla engine, which one would be good to put into the Bronco. We got a lot of interesting questions back and input, so we're going to be talking about that as well. So, with that all done, I've already been asked how my vacation was. And I will start off by saying hello to the first person in the group today, an hour early, Matthew Plavidal. Thank you for joining us. Parker Go Lightly, thank you for joining us. That's Parker89, hashtag 173-76205, hut, hut, hut. 2000 MCR in the house. Poor Boy 313 is just sitting at work. So am I. Wild Horse Garage, what's going on, brother? Jason Freeberg, he's actually asking me how my vacation was. That's where I'll start off. My vacation was great. Went to Sarasota, Florida, Siesta Key. I've been going there since I was a kid. Had a blast. Had a lot of good time with my wife and my family and my nephews and all my sister and brother-in-law's friends and all their kids. We had a huge raft out there. It blew up because we had it in some rough wake, and we ended up having a catastrophic failure, but not before we got at least 5 or 6 hours worth of good use out of it, and the kids were having a good time jumping off of it and hanging out. That beachhead is a beautiful beach. We've been going there again since I was a little knee-high to a duck kind of guy. So if you've never been to Siesta Key, It's in Sarasota, Florida. It's just south of Tampa, Bradenton area there. And the beaches are beautiful. They got a lot of that nice vacation rentals and cabanas and stuff like that. Definitely want to check it out. I know there's some great beaches elsewhere, but that's the one I recognize with the most. Didn't get sunburned, didn't get hammered or drunk beyond any type of recognition. Smoked about 12 cigars in the time span of about 4 days. So I accomplished a lot of important things while I was there. Relaxed, slept until about 9 o'clock every day, and sweat my ass off going to the beach back and forth every day with about 3 carts worth of stuff between the cooler, the raft, and the tents. So it wasn't all relaxation, but the hard work was worth it. So thank you for asking. Insane Mustang, thank you for checking in. Garrett Smith is excited because this is his first Power by the Hour show he's caught live. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate that. Wild Horse saying he missed me something fierce last week. Well, that's something to probably speak to your psychologist or maybe some close friends and see why my life and what I do is impacting you so much. Looks like sound check is going good. All right, so we have a 2021 Bronco. And the 2021 Bronco has been unveiled via video. A really cool video. They did a nice job on the unveiling of it. I thought it was a nice presentation. My overall, reaction to the whole lineup is I am impressed with how much Ford is investing into the Bronco. I expected to have a Bronco, which kind of worried me. It was going to be either a 2-door or a 4-door. They didn't know what the powertrain was, but if they only would have made a Bronco, then I think it would have really spelled out that this was going to be a short-lived run and get it while you could, and you're never going to see it again. But they came out with like an economy Bronco that's like a front-wheel drive, maybe something more along the lines of what you'd see in a Subaru with a lot of ride height for a small vehicle that's front-wheel drive, has 4 doors, that kind of stuff. Then they have the sporty 2-door Bronco that's available in like 35 different packages and all sorts of different options and stuff like that. And then you have a 4-door version of it as well. Where I see a lot of cool things is how close the new Bronco is pretty similar to the original Bronco. Now, I'm going to say the original Bronco because going back into the 60s, that Bronco was a tiny little truck. It was actually closer to what the Bronco 2 ended up being. And the main Broncos that I grew up, I guess, recognizing on the road, which were the full-size Broncos, that's I think what a lot of people expected. They wanted like an F-150 with an SUV, but they wanted an excursion, 2-door excursion, 4-door excursion kind of thing, full-size, big V8, honking truck, and Ford has gone after the Jeep market, and the Jeep market has never really been that. It's never been a big, heavy-duty truck with off-road capabilities. It's been a lightweight, torquey, small engine, manual transmission for a long time with some amenities here and there, but that's not really what gets you off-road and gets you rolling. Now, I'm in Florida, and although we do a lot of off-road stuff here, it's usually mud and muck, and mud and muck really doesn't work well with lightweight vehicles with not a whole lot of torque. You usually want something a little bit heavier. I guess a Samurai and stuff like that can do it, but what we have down here are just Super Duties and H1s and dualies and stuff. Just massive, just overkill and massive power, and that's what guys are used to seeing off-road. So down here, I think the general consensus is, why am I going to buy that? I can do more with a 3.5 4x4 F-150 in my respect. But I think a lot of people that live on the west coast of the country, where they do more camping and do more outdoorsy stuff and go hiking and go to the beach and go to the forest and go to the desert, they have all those options. Obviously, it's going to ring truer to those guys and to those customers out there. So I think they did something pretty cool there. Overall, I like it. It's not terrible. I'm not about to line up and go get one. That's just not my cup of tea, but I like what they did. I like the nostalgia of it. And, I guess I fall in line with every other paid, what would you call them, influencer that was allowed to get first dibs on it and has huge followings online where they just kind of give you a vanilla, I like it, and then they go over the top and tell you it's amazing and that everyone's going to have it and it's going to blow up the industry. It's going to be all these things because Ford needs to make sure that everyone knows this thing's going to be badass, although none of us know if it's going to be a badass or not. So hopefully it's everything they advertise and it is as capable as they say. A couple of things I don't like about it is it doesn't seem to have a whole lot of towing capacity. The towing capacity they release is like 3,500 pounds, which, hey, you know, what are you going to tow with? A little camper, jet skis, that kind of stuff? Maybe that's fine. The Bronco we all kind of wanted was the big honking Bronco, and this guy's a little bit smaller and has a different aim. They have killed it with accessories and all sorts of stuff. They have GoPro mounts on the dashboard. They have all sorts of suspension stuff. They have a go off-road anytime buttons, goat modes, which I thought was greatest of all time, which was a little boastful, but it's something different. You can disconnect sway bars while you're on the trail. None of the stuff that I would ever need in my daily commute or even the things I do down here, but cool nonetheless. I mean, it's available to you and so forth. But the big talk has been the powertrains, and they did not option a V8, even though some of the original Broncos ended up having 289s and 302s in them and so forth. They didn't go that route because they probably know that 2.7 V6 EcoBoost can do the job. You know, we'll take a look at some of the engine specs. Now, here are the engine specs. Your base engine is going to be a 2.3 liter EcoBoost, similar to what we had in the Mustangs, 270 horsepower, 310 foot-pounds of torque, and it's the only way to get the 7-speed manual, which we'll talk about in a second here. It is a 4-cylinder turbo, so it's going to sound like a little 4-cylinder. You know, if you put exhaust on it, it's probably going to have that fart can kind of sound to it. Not robustful, not nostalgic in any way. And then you have the 2.7 liter EcoBoost twin turbo V6, 310 horsepower, 400 foot-pounds of torque. This engine is available in the F-150 currently. It's very quick in the F-150, even though it's a heavier vehicle. So I imagine with the 10-speed automatic that they're going to mate up behind this, that's going to be a pretty zippy truck if you set it up right or don't have it on huge tires and stuff like that. It's going to be pretty stout. It's going to be more than, I think, what you get option to you in like a Jeep Wrangler or any other off-road only kind of vehicle, which is probably why Ford's getting in the fray. There aren't a whole lot of brands out there or options out there for off-road only styled vehicles. Jeep rules the roost. So why not get in there and split that market share up with them, build a better vehicle, or build a vehicle that has options where they don't, and then come out with a nice vehicle and create a huge buzz. And their aim is to build SUVs anyway. They're getting rid of cars. The Mustang's supposedly going to be the only car in the lineup unless there's a supercar or something like that, or a hypercar. Everything's going to be this crossover SUV kind of mix. And I've even heard that the new Mustang is going to be the size of the Mach-E, but naturally aspirated or whatnot, whatever they decide to do there. It's going to be based on the Explorer chassis. So those days are coming where our cars are going away. They've kind of been away a little bit because they're getting big and large and 4,000 pounds and stuff like that, but still look like a car. So engine-wise, the talk is immediately, am I going to like it? It sounds like a V6, sounds like a 4-cylinder. Alex was talking about how the startup is going to be, and it was hilarious. And it's true. I mean, if you're going to put exhaust on it, it's going to sound tinny. It's not going to have that throaty exhaust that you want from a big muscular vehicle that you see at the stoplight. You're going to have 35s, 38s on it. You're going to have it lifted. You have all these lights, and you're going to take off. You're going to hear me. You know, it doesn't fit what's going on there. Even the Raptor 3.5 EcoBoost trucks were plumbing in exhaust sound through the speakers to make you feel like the truck sounded better. And when you get out of it, you wouldn't hear it, but you hopped in the truck, you felt great. So kind of an indication of what they're going for here, or what they care about. So the talk has been, can we put a V8 in it? And, you know, to us, the short answer is always yes. With time and money, anything can be accomplished. The debate that we're having is which engine would be better suited. Now, we look at the new Bronco, and we can see that obviously this isn't it, but this is, I think, what everybody expected out of the Bronco. We didn't get this, and I don't think we're going to get to this, maybe. But you see the new Bronco here, and you've got, you know, off-road styling, all these fun little options. overall, a nod to the nostalgia of the original Broncos. There's a lot of cool things there to look at. Here's a nice little inlay where you're seeing the old Bronco in the middle and the outer edges of the new Bronco to kind of show you that the style lines are just about the same thing. Bunch of accessories. There's a Bronco Sports with a camper on top. Yep, absolutely. Here's the lower end Bronco, a little front wheel drive job that's going to be the cheaper one out of the roost that gives you a little bit of that design. It kind of reminds me of a Range Rover. When they did the deal with Ford, I think Jake actually owned one for a while, or a Land Rover or something like that. That was a Ford derivative. Here's a side-by-side of an original Bronco with stock tires, and here's this new one that comes with its, new accessories, and obviously it looks a lot tougher and has a lot of styling. It doesn't look bad. It's not terrible. Here it is with their see-through door accessories and all the little add-ons. Those cables that I'm not really sure what you do with. I don't think you can. I don't know what those are for. I'm not even going to guess. But it's got like a target top in this one. Bead locks. I mean, it looks cool. It looks sporty. Here's with the doors off, 4-door. Our friends at Max Lighter have been making 4-door vintage Broncos for a while, using our products to make it happen. The trucks are beautiful. It took a top 12 at SEMA. So obviously this styling not only is something that rings true today, but it does take a nod back to the past. What I think most of the consumers today are just looking for newer versions of what they liked back in the day. Resto mod kind of stuff. And then you got the interior. Now, the interior is really nice. This one's got the jazzier interior, and this one's also going to have the 4-cylinder. It's got the manual transmission. And what's interesting about that manual transmission is it's a 7-speed. It's a Getrag, which is kind of like a bad word in the Mustang world, but it is a Getrag, and it has a crawl mode. And the crawl mode is right below first gear, and that's basically for trailer use. So you can definitely take it on the trail, keep it in that one gear, and do some crawling over hard terrains and so forth. 12-inch screen in the dash, steering wheel's nice, all the different things and so forth. So it's really nice. They do give you a lot of styling. They didn't just get cheap on it, but obviously that's going to be a more expensive Bronco there in particular. Another shot of it off the door kind of look. What I would imagine I would probably do with it. I'm taking it out for the weekend, that kind of stuff. The 4-door with it's overall really cool. I mean, it's not tiny. I think overall size wise, we're going to be able to put a V8 in it, and I think everybody's realizing the 12-inch screen deal. So yeah, I think they did a good job. Do we want more out of it? Yeah, but who knows what's going on? There's so many people work on this stuff for so many years that who knows if what we want is actually what's going to work for Ford or not. So that being said, we'll take a little break here. I'm drinking my sparkling ice, sugar-free caffeine drinks. I'm going to also point out that I'm wearing my Lund Racing shirt. If you guys are looking for tuning, Lund Racing is what we offer. They work with us on a ton of things and help us develop tuning for a lot of different things that we've done in the past and moving forward in the future. They got a great ticket system. We offer other tuning. They do have a price update. If you look on our website, it is listed. Their pricing is going up for Coyote Swaps. There's a lot of back and forth they're doing, and they end up helping a lot of guys diagnose errors in their builds. So that time, unfortunately, they're having to charge for it, and they're upping the price. We work with a lot of customers to make sure all that stuff's right. We hop in the tickets with them, and unfortunately, we see it, and it is warranted. So the price is going up. Great service, still the same. So Lund Racing, thank you so much. They tune my own car, and it's always worked great. Alex works for them as well, and his abilities with his own cars and stuff he puts on his channel. It's really nice. So yeah, the Bronco. What should we put in it? If I buy a Bronco tomorrow and I bring it here to PBH, are we putting a Godzilla motor in it? Are we doing a Coyote? All hypothetical. We're not saying we're going to be doing this tomorrow, but hypothetically, which one fits it better? Now we know the Coyote, being that it's been in an F-150, and so is the 2.7 liter V8. Most likely going to be fairly close motor mount wise, potentially. It is available with a 10R80 behind it, which is what's scheduled to be in the Bronco. The Godzilla isn't in the F-150. It's in a completely different chassis, F-250 and up, E-250s as well. And it comes with a 10R140, which we don't have a whole lot of information on. We're not even sure if it has the same bolt pattern on the back of the engine, if it's a modular bolt pattern or not, because that's going to be important as well. Can you run a Godzilla motor, Godzilla engine, with a Mustang PCM so you can run the 10R80? Can we run a 10R80 with a Godzilla PCM? Because that 10R140 is an unknown at this point. Is it going to be a great transmission? Is it going to perform as well as the 10R80? We know it's got the ability to handle a lot more torque. You know, when you look at those designations, 6R80 and 10R80, the 80 means that it can handle 800 Newton meters, which is basically like 590 foot-pounds of torque. Now you got a 10R140, so we're going from 800 to 140, which is almost double. So we're talking about being able to handle 1,000 foot-pounds of torque with that transmission, but is it going to be a performance transmission? So what I'm seeing in this makeup, that the Godzilla is going to be exactly how it's advertised. That big engine, not high revving, not super peppy, but a crawler, a tow monster, maybe can be turned into a race engine with a lot of work. You know, guys maybe in the X275 world or that 2,000 horsepower realm where everything's custom. Not in the stock replacement world where a Coyote out of the box, I think, has more to offer than the Godzilla in a performance respect. Now, if you're an F100 guy, a Bronco guy, this thing is really appealing. A, I can gain a bunch of torque without having to put a supercharger on it. B, it's a big block. I can say I got a lot of cubic inches. C, it's going to probably have a nice note to it with a camshaft. So sound-wise, it's pleasing. It's not a tune. It doesn't disappear with driving and so forth. It's not problematic for stalling and stuff like that. So there's a lot of positive things, but those things don't really ring true maybe to a Fox body guy. Because a Fox body guy is going to have certain potential roadblocks. They're going to be hard to overcome. And dimensionally, everyone's talking about, oh man, look how much room you have to the towers. But there hasn't been a ton of talk about how tall this thing is. Potentially. And when you look at K-members that we're using in Coyote Swaps in Fox bodies, the steering rack has been dropped to give you more clearance because the 4.6 engine needs that in general. Modular engines in general. The Godzilla potentially needs another inch on top of that. Now, if you've done a bump steer kit on any Fox body, you know you're taking out the tapered stud on the spindle and putting a longer one and then shimming it so that your tie rod ends, when the car's at ride height, rule of thumb, are even with the ground so that you don't have a weird angle this way or that way. You hit a reflector on the road and you spin out of control. If you're not telling me that I need to lower that steering rack up to another inch, if not more, how long is that stud going to be on my spindle? Because it also has to have that inch. Am I going to be able to run a 15, 16, 17-inch wheel? Or am I going to have to run an 18-inch wheel to accommodate this shim stack? Am I just going to have to accept the fact that bump steer is not going to be something I can correct on my car? Or do I have to change the entire front end and go to an SLA to get my car to drive properly? Because we know we have to adjust bump steer to get Mustangs to drive better. They're not great out of the box. We start modifying stuff, we hit a roadblock right there. Additionally, oil pan is going to be a problem. The oil pan, the oil pump, if you want to get a thinner oil pan or better clearance, you're going to have to get rid of that oil pump, that jack shaft and everything. They're talking about doing external oil pumps or oil pump modifications to relocate it to get this thing to fit into a Fox body. So I see two big roadblocks there. One, suspension-wise, most guys they'll probably oversee that. I just want to have a cool engine in there. Let's go. I got manual steering. I got manual brakes. I got no interior. I don't give a shit about bump steer. Let's ride. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're talking about relocating an oil pump, getting a custom K member, we think that Coyote swaps are potentially too expensive. This thing, even though you're going to save some money potentially on the engine, could be even more expensive than a Coyote to get into the car, because now we can't reuse any of the stuff we had before, and we already ran into that when we did the Coyote swap. So things to look out for, Fox body wise, are those things. I think in a truck or a Bronco potentially, there might be more room to play with. It's not going to be as tight in that area. There's less rack and pinion and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be easier to put it into an older F100 and a Bronco or an older Bronco, anything along those lines. Even the more vintage vehicles where they had gearboxes and we don't have all that stuff going on in the front. Now, if you upgrade the suspension, then you're usually going to rack and pinion, and you could run into the same problem. So I think where this engine is starting to lie, where it's going to rest the most in, are these bigger projects, these F100s, these Broncos and so forth. I think that's where majority of the guys are going to be, and then they're going to have some fringe guys that will put it into a Fox body, will put a single turbo on it, and we'll have fun with it and do really good. So is it going to be what the Coyote has been to the Fox body? Right now, I just don't see that happening. I think that overall, performance-wise, the Coyote has a lot more to offer out of the box. Can you build the Godzilla to do the same exact thing? Maybe. I mean, it's going to take some money. Just like the Hemi guys find out, they got to do cam heads, intake, LS guys, same thing. So there's potentially some roadblocks there. We're getting a lot of inquiries about it, asking us these questions, and this is what we're seeing as roadblocks. Now, are they bigger roadblocks than we think? Potentially. Maybe there's easy solutions, I don't know. But relocating an oil pump is not something we're used to doing. Is not something the aftermarket's used to doing. The closest thing to it are dry sumps. And those are very expensive oil pumps, and they have to be extremely reliable, but they're belt driven. So if you lose a belt, you lose oil pressure. So now we're putting those Canton pressurized oil tanks in them to make sure. I mean, this is snowballing quick. So those are things to consider when you see guys talking about it. When you see guys commenting about it, think about those things, because the headers, no big deal. Motor mounts, probably not a big deal. K-member, starting to sound like it's a little bit of an issue. Oil pan definitely sounds like it's an issue. Intake manifold, throttle body going up to the sky, going to be an issue. Is it going to be an issue in a Bronco? Probably going to be more room in there to play with. So I think you're going to have Godzilla Swap Broncos, F100s, F250s, 350s of the era. Maybe even street rods, because custom chassis and stuff like that might be easier to fit them in there. Taller is almost better in like a 32 Highboy or a Factory 5 Cobra or something like that. Intake manifold might be a problem on that, but probably easier to overcome than width issues like the Coyote presents. Overall, if you're a performance guy that doesn't want to build an engine every single time, or doesn't want to build an engine right out of the box and still wants 650 horsepower, a Coyote is still probably going to have the edge on it. So those are the things to really consider. And as we move forward with this stuff, we're going to be looking deeper into it and seeing what we can come up with, and see what the solutions are actually going to be, what the roadblocks are going to be. There's a lot of talented builders out there that we work with that are looking at doing the same thing, and we're going to help them. So there is a lot of stuff going on in the chat, and I'm not watching any of it, but we do have one paid question here. Hey Frank, will a Gen 2 Coyote CAN bus communicate with a 3-valve CAN bus and the gauges work? Yes, I believe you're going to get most of the stuff working. I know what we have been trying to figure out CAN bus wise with the Gen 1 stuff has been more for like reverse lights and turning the traction light off, advanced track light and the messaging system off, and the gauges. I believe for the most part the gauges will be very, very similar. So where you have to be careful with though is speedometer and making sure that's accurate. That's something you're going to have to really rely on the OSS or the VSS and then converting that to the right pulse per mile so that when it gets into the computer, everything's accurate and it is accurate on the gauge itself. So a little bit of a uphill battle there. I think your speed, or not, excuse me, your fuel level, that's outside of the CAN bus, so that can go direct. Voltage, water temp, those kind of things, even though they're working from the factory, they're not really super accurate anyway. So as long as they're reading and sweeping, you can consider that a win. Tachometer, I have been told, will work as well. So I think you're in the right arena there. I think it'll work for the most part. It's going to take some wiring, figuring out, but it should work. And we are working on some CAN bus solutions for it to make it easier. Let's see here. Reading some of these comments here. You guys are going off in here, man. All right. Oh, Caleb's here, man. Caleb from Foxcast Media has joined us tonight. Good evening. I think Parker is correct. He says this is like SEMA. Who cares if it drives properly as long as it looks cool sitting in the garage? Absolutely. I think if we go with the SEMA mentality, we'll just push our cars everywhere after we clean them, put them in the parking lots, let them idle, and then shut them off, and then push them home. Because that's what I see a lot of things as far as going on at SEMA. Root Beer chiming in. Frank, what are your thoughts on doing a Coyote stroker? There's a crank rod piston kit out there. Was curious how much horsepower a Gen 2 would gain going to a 5.1 to a 5.1 and a half. Thoughts? Well, we know. Look at the 5.2 liters. Look at the 5.2 Voodoo. Look at the 5.2, potentially the Illuminator engines or the Excess engine. It's going to add some power, but you're doing a lot of work there to gain 0.2. That's not going to be a big difference maker, in my opinion. I've never done a whole lot of stroker engines, but let's say if it gives you potentially 25 horsepower in a naturally aspirated setting, is that really worth spending all that money or doing all that machine work, customization? I think the stroker stuff, really where it's coming into play is when you're having to modify the block anyway because you had some failure and you're going to have to get in there regardless. To me, it would be better suited just to sleeve it and put a Coyote piston in there and use the stock crank, which everyone says is amazing. It's basically a Cobra Jet crank in all of them. You know, if you go to a stroker motor, potentially get an aftermarket crank, is it going to be better than the factory one? We haven't really seen any weaknesses of the factory one unless you get to the ceiling, 1,500 horsepower plus, then you're talking about getting a custom crank or something like that. But I don't really see the necessity to do it. I know Ford did it with the Voodoo. I don't know the reasoning behind it. They also did it to the Illuminator, and you got the GP500 that has it as well. So there is something to it. Is it just purely performance, just to get a little bit extra power? I don't think it's just that, because the Voodoo made 500 horsepower, but it's flat plane crank. Can't really compare it. The Illuminator XS, they claim like 600 horsepower or some crazy out of that, but haven't really seen any dynographs proving it. And looking at the makeup of that engine, I don't really see where it's making all that extra power. The GP500, again, not an easy thing to compare it to because it's boosted right from the factory and it has all this potential. So is it the blower? Is it the engine? It's tough to really say. But I wouldn't invest extra money into doing that if it was my car, because I haven't seen guaranteed results and you can't pinpoint exactly what it's going to do for me. But I know it's going to drain my wallet just a little bit more. All right, so what are you guys talking about? There's so much going on in the chat here. Doug, yeah, hey, Doug Fidelco. Steady waiting on parts from a bunch of vendors, stupid COVID-19. You are my first customer that's completely plagued by COVID-19. BBK, which we all know probably sources a lot of their stuff in China, is really being hit hard. Headers and mid pipes are gone. All the extra inventory that was laying around has been gobbled up and has been distributed, and now there's nothing coming to replace it, so everyone's in a holding pattern. There's a lot of vendors doing the same thing. I think it's affecting a lot of manufacturers right now. We're probably seeing right now what we were anticipating with the shutdown is that wave. We had inventory. We shut everything down. The inventory kind of started dwindling. There was no replacement. And now at the rock bottom of some of these distributors and vendors and warehouses, Summit and Jegs and all those companies, they're out of stuff. And in fact, that BBK mid-pipe that you're waiting for, I can't even find it on Summit anymore. I think they took it down because they just want to sell them if there's no guarantee it's going to be here anytime soon. Alejandro Flores is in the house. Save me an oil cap for a Gen 3, please. I'll see if I can find one. I know you mentioned something, but I was out of town when you did, but I'll see if there's one out there. Jose Delgado, I'm getting my Gen 2 block honed about 10 over, and I'm swapping pistons for forged ones. What forged pistons do you recommend? Honestly, I don't know. I know a lot of the engines that we've worked with have had diamond pistons, and they seem to work great as long as they were installed properly. I would probably recommend diamond based on our experience now that I think about it. There's going to be all sorts of options out there. Manley is another one that you can go to as well. That I believe that's what's used in the illuminators. Solid, but again, installation, setup, engine builder, that's going to be the reason it works or it doesn't work. So get the best thing your budget can afford. I think if you go with Diamond or Manley, you'll be in good shape. And then just make sure your engine builder is top notch. Let's see here. Yeah, Alex is in the house. He's already been called King Shit Talk. That's pretty interesting. Frank, what did you have to do to put a Coyote in the Grand National? I had a gentleman approach us about 3 or 4 years ago, and he had already got it wedged in there. He had to make motor mounts. He's obviously doing exhaust and custom exhaust and stuff like that, and I don't think he's completely finished it. He's actually building cars, Coyote Swap vehicles. He calls and orders parts from us every once in a while. His name slips my mind right now, but I believe that's what he told me he had to do. And I'll see if I can get an update from him. I wonder if he's gotten any further with it. F150, S550, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us. Parker says he's got diamond in my motor and have been great so far. Wildhorse Garage chiming in on the piston deal. Molly, Diamond, Ross pistons. I think that's pretty much your top choices there. Also keep in mind that if you find some of these pistons on the shelf somewhere and they're not made for you by the manufacturer when you request it, contact the manufacturer, because we ran into a situation where we had Manley rods put in an engine by an engine builder, and they failed, and it turns out that the rods that were used were something that had been ordered ahead of time. They were actually under recall because there was a defect with the manufacturing process, and it ate up a perfectly good aluminum block, and it created a really weird situation between us and the engine builder and the customer because let's see here. F150 S550 says he's getting JE pistons, Molnar billet rods, and a stock crank. Admittedly, I'm not an engine builder. I don't know all the ins and outs of the engine. I kind of turn that over to the guys who are smarter than me. But sounds good. I mean, to me, whatever the illuminator can give you sounds awesome. Because that illuminator, if you're good to 1,000 horsepower, you can do a lot of damage up from that point. So, Doug chiming in with some channel support. Thank you, Doug. Really appreciate that, buddy. Alex says, then they blame the rods and you're out $17K. Well, yeah, that's kind of what happened there. I wish it didn't happen, but it did. And yeah, hey, we're only better for it. That's fine. We took care of that customer regardless, and we got a customer for life, and we just don't kind of do custom engines anymore. We like stock stuff, Illuminator, and beyond that, what we ended up starting to do was just telling the customer, if you want a custom built engine, go get it built. We'll pull it out for you. You're going to send it to them complete. And that engine builder is not doing a short block. He's not doing a long block. He's doing a complete motor. When he sends it back to me, it's sealed, ready to install. Timing cover, timed, valve covers, all the gaskets, everything. That way, if there's any problem whatsoever, we know that the last person who touched it, whether it's a gasket leak, a head gasket failure, a loose rod bolt, timing, any of that stuff, was the engine builder that you paid your $15,000 to $25,000 to. And if there's a problem, it's nice and clear cut. You don't have to argue with us. You can pay us to fix it, or you can pay us to pull it out and send it back to them for your warranty. And that was the easiest way to make sure that it didn't get muddled. And some of the engine builders did not like that. They wanted to sell you a short block, sell you a long block, sell you a set of heads. No, 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 no. If you're charging those top dollars for your work, then you can charge a little bit more and give me a sealed engine and guarantee that work. It doesn't really work like that in the performance industry. There's always gray area, and usually there's no warranty because it's a racing engine, or you can call that a back out, CYA plan, but you would hope that they would give you a little bit more support if you're their customer and so forth. Alejandro Flores has a question. Let's see here. If you had a choice between Roush Yates' 400 plus cubic inch motor, Voodoo, or Gen 3 in your car, which would you pick? Yikes. I probably would not go with a Voodoo. I think there's more issues there than I really want to deal with. The question between a 400 cubic inch motor or a Gen 3, I'd probably do a Gen 3. I think a Gen 3 is probably one of the best iterations of the Coyote. That 400 cubic inch motor, for what I do, would be extremely torquey and maybe harder to drive. Yeah, I think I'd do a Gen 3, because then if I want to boost it, I can probably add another 250 horsepower maybe, make it up to 800. I don't know if that 400 cubic inch engine is going to give me the drivability I want, and then the ceiling to add boost. So probably do a Gen 3 if I had to do it right now. Would I ever boost my car? I'll tell you right now, as much as that Yates motor would be nasty and would sound awesome and look great, I don't know if me or the car have the ability to get the most out of it. The Gen 3 would be solid. I know what I'm getting myself into, and it's probably going to be easier to tune and figure out than a custom 400 cubic inch V8. Now, if I wanted to boost my car, I'd probably do a positive displacement blower. And kind of awkwardly, because I do autocross and I have all that power, I'd probably be doing an auto swap and getting rid of a manual transmission. That way, I can run the car with an automatic and use a torque converter, and that is the secret to a lot of the stuff that you see out there. When you look at these Detroit speed cars and Ride Tech and all these big monster autocross behemoths with 800 horsepower, most cases they either got a power glide in them or a turbo 400 because it's easier to drive in that setting. It's not as snappy, it's not direct. I believe that is the main reason. That's what I've been told. So if I were to do it and test the waters, I'd probably end up with maybe a 4R200 6R80 in my car, Edelbrock 2650, Whipple Gen 5, 600-700 horsepower on a Gen 3, maybe a really cool PBH shifter, hint hint. So that would be my weapon of choice, would be a Gen 3 in that case, based on what I know and what I have access to here. Lee Paulson, what gen would you recommend on a cost to performance basis for a street in an 07 Mustang? I think if you're looking at purely brand new, your two options are Gen 3 and Gen 2. Gen 2, I think, is where I'm going to be. I think Gen 2 gives you the same headroom as Gen 3 as far as boost, but it's a couple grand cheaper new crate motor. So the PBH crate engine that we offer at $8,000 versus I think it's like $9,500 for the Gen 3 from Ford Racing. So that would be what I would recommend. I think you can get a lot more. You can get plenty out of a Gen 2 engine, NA or boosted, stock for stock. Now, if you're looking at used, the Gen 1 engines, they can still handle 700 horsepower, so it depends on what you're doing with your vehicle. If you want to keep it NA, if you find a good used Gen 1 motor, you're happy. Everything's good. Everything's going to be good and everything's going to be fun, and you'll still be able to make power. You're not going to leave a whole lot on the table compared to a Gen 2. The Gen 2s do have all the upgrades that the Boss 302s had with camshafts and valve springs and porting and all that fun stuff. Rods and pistons are a little bit stronger so they can handle more power. Gen 1s don't have all that stuff unless you get a Boss 302 engine. So, but new, I would do a Gen 2 between the two of them and save a few bucks, and it's a known quantity. You can put a 6R80 behind it. 10R80 is not an option there, so that also weighs into it as well. Yeah, Lee chimes in and he goes, yes, thank you. Yes, NA with a 6R80. If you definitely like the 6R80, I would prefer the 6R80 at this point for you. I would do a Gen 2 for sure. We do offer brand new Gen 2 crate engines. You can't get those from Ford Racing or any Ford Racing dealer out there. It's kind of a little bit of a PBH exclusive, you can say. Let's see here. Cheyenne Obregon. I have a 2014 V6 and a 2014 GT UPR and stator suspension from my V8 already since I crashed my 14 GT. Would the auto work in the V6? Would the auto work in the V6 work and computer on the Gen 3 Illuminator? My engine and trans is gone. Okay. So you got a 14 V6. It sounds like it's an automatic V6. So the bell housing is different. So if you want to run a 6R80 behind that GT engine that you already have, you're going to want to get a Mustang GT or an F-150 transmission instead of using that V6 transmission. It's not going to mate right up. So they are different. And there are some differences internally on that one in particular as well. So I would say hunt down a used 6R80 in good health and put that behind it. And then you can always have it built. Or you can buy a brand new one from us, hunt down a used one, and send us that one as a core, and you get $1,500 for it. Sometimes you can find these core 6R80s out there that are rebuildable in the $300 to $600 range. So you can get your stuff ordered and sent to you, and then you can send that back to us and get some money back for it. Listen, I didn't say anything about a shifter, so don't ask. Ryan Dillon, thank you for the support, buddy. Hitting us up with $10 there. I really appreciate that. Ryan Merrill is here, guys. One of our regulars. Let's see if we can find some more questions in here that we can answer. Let's see. Oh, it's tough to read through all this stuff, man. Then you get dead air. Barry Farmer says, what about a 3-2-1 combo? 3-2-1 combo being a Gen 3 bottom end, Gen 2 heads, Gen 1 cams. Awesome. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to do that other than just sourcing all the parts and making sure you have everything you need. I know you got to get some special head gaskets to make that work, but you should be able to acquire that stuff or find out what it is. Bobby Wartman has joined us. How we doing, Bobby? Jose Delgado. One more dollar than Mr. Flores. Oh, we're gonna have a battle here. $23 The Dakota Gauges cluster behind you for early Mustang or Falcon will work fine with a PBH harness. Yeah. That one there, that's actually a thermometer and wall clock, a little desktop clock. It used to make noise every hour, but I got to change the batteries. But anyway, when it comes to Dakota Digital gauges, or any gauges for that reason, if they're CAN bus based, it doesn't matter what generation you have, as long as the addresses that they're plucking are for that generation. So you can use them with a PBH harness, you use them with a control pack. When we do the computers in our control packs, and Ford Racing does them in theirs, they're not going in there shutting off addresses in the CAN bus. if the addresses are different and the program boxes that these gauge manufacturers are supplying you don't pick up a signal, I have heard them blame the control pack or the PCM, saying, well, they change their signals and they shut them off, and that's just a lack of knowledge, honestly. And I've called them out a few times on that stuff too. It's just someone just coming up with an answer, blame it, and getting out of their court, basically. The reason why that happens is because the addresses change. And if that box is designed for the addresses in a Gen 1 Coyote and in a Gen 2 Coyote, they move the address for the speed from this to that, and your box isn't designed to pick it up from that new address, you don't have speed. So there is very few times that they're going to have one CAN bus box that covers all of them. So you got to make sure that what they're offering you, whether it's be Dakota Digital or any of the other manufacturers out there, that it's compatible with your generation Coyote and the signals that are being broadcasted by the PCM. That's the homework. That's the question to ask them. Doug, we need those $500 ballers Alex gets. Yeah, that'd be fun. That's crazy what happens on his channel, man. It is nuts. Guys dropping $300, $500. I mean, kudos to him for having that kind of support. It's amazing to me that happens, and it's kind of like an anomaly within YouTube. To me, I've never ever seen anything like that. I was watching him live last night on the couch. My wife's next to me. I'm going, $500, $300. She goes, what? But why? I'm like, why not? Why not? It's a popular show. We all like it. We like Alex. Why not have him? I paid $80 to have some dope from Siesta Key MTV show to do a cameo video for my wife. He should do it. Alex should be on Cameo. He can do videos and tell people to, go to hell for their birthday. Jarrett Stallworth, do you guys have experience with Coyote Swap 2nd or 3rd gen Explorers? Same size as a Wrangler Bronco, but dirt cheap to buy and cheap buy-in and aftermarket off-road stuff. Okay. I've been asked by a couple of people online. 2nd and 3rd gen Explorers, I imagine, are more like are more along the lines of the Rangers before they disappeared. There is one customer, I think it's TTI Performance, I want to say in Texas, I believe it is. Those guys are doing a Coyote Swap, like 90s Ranger twin turbo, and he reported to me that he had to cut and do a lot of custom stuff to get it in there. The Ranger front ends are, I think, were they twin I-beam? Or they're torsion bar. They're torsion bar. So it's not easy to move stuff around, so you got to really make some custom stuff to make them fit. The engine bay itself is fairly tight, even though they are a little bit larger as far as a vehicle or the size of a Wrangler or a Bronco. There isn't a ton of room in there now. There's a lot of V8 swapped 90s Rangers out there. You see them at the track all the time. But they're wedging, Windsor 302s, 351s, Windsor-based engines in there. The Coyote's a little bit different animal. Headers, how wide she is up top. She's a big girl between the shoulder blades. So making sure that stuff works and fits. And then headers for steering shafts and gears and stuff like that. It's a little bit of an issue. I know on Rangers and stuff like that, back in the mini truck days, guys were cutting the frames and putting Toyota front ends so they can get the upper and lower control arm, what they call like an SLA setup. That way they can bag them and get them all the way down to the ground, because with that torsion bar or twin I-beam setup, whichever one it had, you'd end up with crazy camber when you lay the truck flat, and all that suspension is basically in the way. It's a problem, so keep that in mind. F150 S550, we need you to be on one of Alex's lives on Tuesday, but we want the off-the-clock Frank. Hey. I would be willing to do that. Uncensored Frank on Alex's channel. I know him and I have talked about it. We're probably going to talk about it soon enough here. We're going to try to help him get some artwork done. So we'll see. We'll see when we can put it together. and do it and let it fly. I think someone last night on the show recommended getting me drunk and then having me on there. It probably wouldn't take much with the diet I am on. Maybe just a couple glasses of red and I'd be ready to rock. But I know Alex doesn't partake in that stuff, so maybe we'll just stick to the nitro coffee. Let's see here. Wild Horse Garage says, if people want to pay Alex stupid amounts of money, good on Alex. He's earned it many times over. I agree. The guy's got an entertaining show, and he provides good tech. He provides his perspective. In some cases, is very polarized or polarizing, but it's his perspective. And if you don't like the broadcast, you can always change the channel. You don't have to listen to him. So it's interesting to me because it does provoke a lot of discussion. I know he came out with his opinions of the Bronco openly, and a lot of people disagreed because either they really like the Bronco or maybe they're just riding the wave. I think it's a little controversial, and I think he's good with controversial. F-150, S550 says, you'd get paid, it would rock. I've actually been on the show before. If you look back through some of his older broadcasts, I've been on there for a night. We had a good time with it. It was good stuff. Off the clock Frank. Yeah, you're getting a punched in PBH Frank right now. Like most of you on here, I'm sure there's a little bit different version of you at home or when you're around some friends and so forth. But you're not being recorded live and broadcasted to 3,000 people out there. But who cares? I mean, you only live once, right? YOLO. Gatto. Someone get this man some Elijah Craig whiskey so he feels a little bit looser. How about some Pappy, man? I've never had any Pappy. I've had Louis Trey. That was pretty nasty. One of our good customers and good friend have a bar in Fort Myers. We went there and we wanted to know what that bottle was. At the top of the bar, locked up, and it was a bottle of Louis Trey. So it was about $300 a glass. He bought Jake and I both a glass, and we started to drink it, and it was nasty. I've never drank cognac before, and at the time I wasn't really into straight liquor. I was drinking the foo-foo liquor, the blueberry and marmalade stuff, just so you can mask all the liquor flavor and just gobble it down. That cognac made me very honest that night. And then I switched to straight whiskey, rocks, which was good because it kept me from drinking too much when I went out. And now I've kind of turned into a red blend kind of guy, and I can chill out and smoke cigars, drink some red wine, and not have to worry about getting too crazy. And then as soon as someone breaks out the fireball, the snowball hits, and we just go out of control. Good conversation. A lot of Coyote Swap tech happening right now. David Martin chiming in. I hate the new Bronco. Alex says that off the clock Frank is gold. Thank you so much. Hit that like button. That's good stuff. Man, I always go back and rewatch the videos so I can see what was exactly going on in the chat, because I always miss so much in there as we're going through some of the topics and so forth. And it's funny. You guys are great. It's always a lot of fun. So, is anybody planning on going to any events this year? We talk about this almost every week. Right now, the only event potentially I may be able to go to is to the Holly Intergalactic Ford Festival at Bowling Green, because it hasn't been canceled yet, but things aren't looking too hot. So I'm hoping that happens, because they've canceled everything else up till now. And I don't know about Foxtoberfest. We've gone to Foxtoberfest now 2 years in a row. We're planning on going back again this year, but hopefully that doesn't get canceled. They had a new venue, which was a mall and everything, and we'll see. F-150, S550 says he loves the snowball effect when drinking. It can happen quickly. It almost happened to me last Saturday. Got back from vacation, came and worked. I got back on Thursday, came to work on Friday. We left work early on Friday, to go to Christian Papa's wedding. Congratulations to Christian and his wife on getting married. The whole shop went to the ceremony. Then we went after it and had a few drinks. So my week was pretty short here at work. It was only about 6 hours. And then Saturday went to a pool party, and boy, that happened quickly. Good, got out of there at the right time, in time to go out to dinner with my wife and have a good time. Let's see here. Most are canceled, like Hot Rod Drag Week. Alex says, yeah, Hot Rod Drag Week got canceled, I think, today. A lot of things are just canceled because of the distancing. I know Disney's open. But it's very limited. You gotta reserve your tickets. I'm a pass holder. I can reserve a spot to go to the park. Very limited. You can get on a bunch of rides and stuff like that, but not everything's open. So some of our favorite spots to hit in the parks are still not available. And if Disney's doing that, and they have all the control and all the employee and manpower to make it happen, it's going to be really hard for a place like Bowling Green or Carlisle, which I heard Carlisle defied a lot of laws and mandates and still had their LS Fest or GM Carlisle thing or whatever. And they almost got shut down by the governor, and they're getting sued and all this other stuff. So there are those out there defying it and still having the events, and people are going. Yeah, SEMA, if you look at the floor plan of SEMA, I see a lot of empty spots in the main halls and the other halls. So it might be indication that there may not be as much vendor support. If there's not as much vendor support, I'll imagine it's not going to be as good of a show. Are people going to take their cars there? Is it going to be worth taking your car there or displaying part? With SEMA, once you make it to a certain spot in the hall, if you don't come the next year, they hold your spot. Now, if you don't come the year after that, you fall back in line. So any of these companies that maybe financially have been hit, that can't afford to go to SEMA, or maybe didn't finish a project, or don't want to take the chance of going because of COVID-19, they could opt to take a year off, save some money, and come back next year just as hard and not lose their spot in line. So I don't know how good SEMA is going to be. I've talked about it before. I've been to SEMA. It was fun. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. I think PRI is a better show as far as actually getting to know people and being able to talk to them. There's less celebrity status in a way, and Vegas, well, you get Vegas. You get tired, you walk a lot, everything looks like it's right down the street, 6 hours away. You're up at all sorts of weird hours. We went out drinking at 2:30. We woke up, brushed our teeth, and went out drinking at 3 o'clock in the morning. Because it was 6 o'clock here, it was our regular, we're wide awake. We went out drinking, then came back to the hotel drunk, had breakfast, and waited for the show to open. We weren't worth a lick that day, walking around we're sitting on the second floor of the tire pavilion, and we can feel the floor moving. We're going, oh, this ain't gonna work. We need a barbecue sandwich from outside or something to get us over this. Okay, Joe Lubner says, or Lubner. Ford Nationals, Carlisle is still on. Yeah, I think Carlisle is kind of going full steam ahead, saying we're going to have all our events, and we don't really care about what the mandates are in our state. If there are any mandates in that state, I heard that was their stance for their last event. I think a lot of places are starting to get to that point because, well, the news is the news. Who knows what's going on? Yeah, cheers to Christian. They got married. That's good for them. The ceremony was nice. It's pretty cool. Let's see here. Matthew Plavidal says he's looking forward to 2021 and going to NMRA in Bradenton. Yes, we'll bring the car. Cool. We haven't been to Bradenton in a couple years now. And we used to do a nice big booth there because it was kind of like the home event for us, and we did a lot more drag racing and so forth and put all our products on display. But as things have graduated here and we're working on less performance-oriented cars and we have all these products, it's not really a hotbed for Coyote Swap stuff. We did more at Mod Nats and at Foxtoberfest than we ever did at the NMRA event in Bradenton. The same goes for Bowling Green, but now that Holly's on board and it's kind of like about engine stuff and there's an autocross, it seems like that dynamics opened up a little bit more, and it's got my interest, mainly because of the autocross stuff, but also there's a lot of places I want to hit on the way up there and on the way back. There's a lot of friends of ours that go to this event, so it'd be nice to kind of do the annual pilgrimage there. I don't think we're going to be going to SEMA or PRI or anything, although we've done them both in the past. So, alrighty, guys. I think I'm going to start wrapping things up. We'll close up by saying I think the Godzilla engine is going to be the right fit for your Broncos, your F100s that are looking for an engine swap solution. The nice thing about it is I think it's going to work in a lot of stock suspension versions of those older vehicles, and then maybe some of the newer stuff as well. The Coyote engine still has a lot of positives that the Godzilla cannot meet. Now that may change as more information comes out. It's sounding more and more like if we want to wedge it into the cars that we want to, we pay homage to or are fans of, there's going to be a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different things to do to get them in there. You can just drop them in, call it a day. Then there's doing it right. And I think the aftermarket support is seeing that there's going to be some hurdles to go through, or over, to get this thing done right. So those are things to consider, and it changes every day. We find out something new, someone else calls, some other information comes out. Bottom line is, right now we can only speculate on what we know, and these things are, they're fairly big, hurdles to get over. So that's what we'll say for now, and we'll move on to the next topics. I think next week we're going to try to talk about is some 6R80 stuff. We've been requested a lot of this information in the past, so I'm going to try to put together some info that we can go over, specifically stuff that's related to like our products, our 6R80 fittings, our shift levers and stuff like that. Anybody who's doing a 6R80 will be on here. We'll talk about it a little bit. As far as other product updates, we did get some feedback on our Gen 3 F-150 motor control pack combo, and the vehicle that we tested it with, one of them is up and running and is doing okay. We'll see when it's completed as they get a little bit further. And then we also have another builder that's putting one together, and he's got a different variation of it, and we'll see how that compares to that one. We did get some more S197 Gen 1 Coyote Swap body harnesses done that are being shipped out. One of them is going to our friends at Dover's Garage, which is Foxcast, and they're going to be putting together a Coyote Swap Gen 1. I think it's an 06 or an 07 car. So they're going to be using a custom version of that harness, something that we handmade for them, so we can get that done and test it with them. So things are upcoming. We got some other products stoking the fire with them, but nothing yet that we can release or tell you about. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us tonight. We talked a little bit about the Bronco and maybe Coyote swapping it, what the Bronco has to offer, including that badass 12-inch screen that has great resolution. So thank you again for joining us. We're going to be back next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you have not followed us on Instagram or on Facebook, please do that. You can also subscribe to us here on YouTube and hit that notification bell. Make sure it says all so you don't miss any of the shows or any of the broadcasts or videos that we do. Leave a like the video, share the video. If there's something in here you know somebody needs to know about or you want to know about the show, feel free to share it wherever you like. If you have any questions and we didn't answer them in the chat tonight, info@pbhperformance.com, or you can email me directly, frank@pbhperformance.com. Our website is pbhperformance.com. You can call us 561-737-2331. You guys all take it easy. I hope I didn't miss anybody as far as recognizing them. Thank you so much for the support. You guys are awesome. We'll be back, and we got some new equipment coming. I think the broadcast did pretty good tonight. I had sound the entire time, so that's a big upgrade. So we'll see you next week, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I love you. Talk to you now.